What's up? What's up? What's up? What is going on, everybody? Let me turn this down. Don't want y'all dancing in the background, but y'all already know who this is. It's your man Dre Mac coming to you again with another episode of the Dre Mac Show. Of course, this is a special 3:30 show. Normally, you know I go on at 7:30 in the morning Central Time, 8:30 Eastern Time. This is a very special show because I got two special guests that's in here that we're going to talk about the Jonathan Majors trial. We're going to do basically like a recap and what we've learned and ask a couple more questions. And like the thumbnail says, even with the evidence, we got to ask that question. Even with the evidence, how did we get here? So that is going to be the question of the day. So hopefully you guys are happy. Hopefully you guys are healthy. Shout out to my man Heavy Gad, the Heavy Gad channel. Of course, we're going to get to all of the comments and everything once we get this thing started. You already know what it is, but the real question is, all right, and I told you that I got two special guests in the house. I got Danielle Atherton. You already know she's been on the show, also known as Danny Does Law. I got Lauren Victoria Burke in the house. It's a very special guest. I appreciate you ladies. Thank you guys for coming on to the show today.
No problem.
My pleasure.
All right. And if you don't know who these ladies are, I'm going to have, I got my hands up right here. So I'm going to have these ladies introduce themselves, starting with Danny. If you're not familiar with these ladies, Danny, go ahead and take it away.
I'm just an everyday person that my background is law, I'm paralegal, but I actually went to the trial for 95% of it. Mainly because, like most of you, I thought it just didn't make any sense. So rather than rely on the media accounts that we got up until the day of the trial, I went myself just to see for myself how this even got this far. And lo and behold, it was a Pandora's box of bull.
And then, of course, Miss Lauren Victoria Burke.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. And thanks for having me on with Danielle, because I've appreciated a lot of the information she's imparted to everybody. It's really valuable. I'm Lauren Burke. I've been in the media and worked in politics for over 20 years at big news organizations and small news organizations, ABC News and USA Today and all that. I've worked in the federal government for members of Congress, state government in New York and in Virginia. I'm from New York. My mother's from Virginia. And so I covered really only 3 days of the Jonathan Majors trial. And I typically don't cover celebrity stuff. I cover politics. But I knew something was up because I had expected that the case would get withdrawn in some way. It had been delayed several times, and then I heard that Ms. Jabari had been arrested, and then lo and behold, we're in court on a misdemeanor. None of that made sense to me, and I'm blessed to have a grandmother who bought a house in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, back in the 50s. So it was very easy for me to go into Manhattan criminal court. For the first time. I'd never been to Manhattan criminal court. I've covered other court trials that are federal, but not a criminal court case such as this. And like Miss Atherton, I want to see things for myself. I want to see things in person. I want to see the feel of the room. So I covered 3 days of the trial, and we'll get into what we saw. Thank you for having me.
No problem. I think those 3 days was probably more impactful to you because I mean, I just so happy to come on. I'm watching Roland Martin. Roland Martin, of course, I follow him on Twitter.
Mhm,
Been following Roland Martin for years, and
mhm.
I so happened to look and see you come on. You start talking about the Jonathan Major story, and then other people, because you've shouted out Kat, you shouted out Pam Entertainment Television. We shout out to her also. Chillmonger. I think you watched one of Chillmonger's
Yeah.
videos, I believe, and Danny was on there, and that just got the ball rolling. You got into this, really talking about this, and I think that's where I was just more intrigued on your insight. So I really appreciate you coming on to the show today, and we really kind of get into the meat and potatoes of this, because I see it in two ways. And I know I had a show yesterday morning. People were like, "Oh, well, Jonathan Majors, his lawyers, and they did this and they did that." And I know you made a video. And if you haven't, make sure that you go and subscribe to both of these ladies' YouTube channel, Lauren Victoria Burke on YouTube, and Danny Does This and That on YouTube also. So make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe to those channels. But you made that video saying, well, did the prosecution F up? And I want to kind of have both of you guys elaborate that. First, you, Lauren, just give you your side, and Danielle, I know you had you had your side to to the attorneys and everything. So go ahead and kind of explain, what that kind of meant to you when you made that video.
Yeah, so I think it's some really good points have been made about some of the mistakes during the trial, the text messages getting in, uh, maybe some critique of Priya Chaudhry's closing with regard to calling Ms. Jabari a liar. I think that a lot of those points being made are very valid, but at the same time, I was a history major in college at American University, and I tend to approach these topics with a historic lens and not just see it as Jonathan Majors, the actor. I mean, he's an avatar of a bigger thing that we see and that we have been seeing over 400 years in the United States when it comes to the justice system and Black people, and specifically Black men. So when I looked at the attorneys and their performance, even though I think certainly there's always room for improvement, I wanted to point out that they are up against some elements here that are extremely difficult to fight against. One of which is just the history of the situation. The second of which is a prosecutor's office, Alvin Bragg's office, that has decided to bring a misdemeanor case into a courtroom and then effectively, in my view, have a case that sort of deals in some generalities and gets away from the specificity around evidence, real evidence, which we had a ton of. And I just wanted to say a shout out to Priya and Seth and acknowledge really how difficult their job is. And to be a defense attorney at this point, with the Me Too movement in the background, is extremely difficult because that movement is trying to erode due process in a way that I think is extremely concerning, should be very concerning for the Black community specifically. We see the Innocence Project every day springing Black men typically out of jail after 3 and 4 decades that were innocent.
Mhm.
See that almost every day in some tweet by NBC or somebody. And the erosion of due process and evidentiary process and paying attention to evidence is a very important thing to me. My father was in law enforcement. I have a nephew that was in law enforcement and several other family members. My boyfriend is a federal police officer, and I have a family court judge on Long Island. So I kind of grew up with the notion of evidence. And even though I think that domestic violence is extremely important and sexual violence needed to be dealt with, the Me Too movement was trying to do that. I do think that there has to be somebody saying that due process matters. And so what these attorneys went up against is that entire thing. They're going up against that
Mhm.
history, and they're going up against the specific moment that we're in with Alvin Bragg's office emphasizing certain concepts over evidentiary process and due process. So that's why I did the video.
Right. And Daddy, what do you think? It kind of to piggyback off of what she said. Do you think it's the lawyers, or are you looking at everything that we're looking at here with, especially Alvin Bragg's office? We've seen what happened with with Adam Foss. We're seeing what's going on with Kevin Porter Jr., which I'm still interested in that. So are you seeing that too? Do you think the lawyers was just really up against the wall when it came to this case?
Yeah. I complete and total agreement with Lauren on that. I've said it before. I don't remember where, but I feel like this Me Too conversation came up on another stream that I was on, and I am in 100% agreement with that. I feel like you had said in one of your earlier lives, Dre, that they were fighting with one hand. Like, you cannot. Blaming the lawyers is the low-hanging fruit. That's the easiest thing to do because you can just say, go get a new lawyer. But going up against a machine that's allowing these types of injustices is a lot harder. And historically, unfortunately, we are not known as being the people that are going to go up against the machine. We'll march, we'll, hashtag ourselves half to death. But when it comes to actually boots on the ground, and physically going out, not in a protest type of thing, but actually going out and voting, going to jury duty, showing up in person to these different elected officials' offices and demanding that they are accountable and demanding accountability from their employees, like the ADAs that are actually trying these cases on behalf of the DA. We're not doing that. We're not doing that in enough numbers that it matters. They are not threatened by us in that regard. And this is why this type of stuff happens. If they were threatened by Black men in America or Black men in the New York City metro area, this trial would have never happened. But there's no threat there. They're not afraid that we're going to lose their vote. They're not out here voting anyway. And if they are voting, they're on some, I'm going to vote for Trump because I got a stimulus check. I'm going to keep it 100. I'm going to keep it 100 because I've heard plenty of rappers.
We keep it 100 on this show.
I've heard plenty of rappers say crazy stuff like that. The earliest being That Crazy Sexy Red. And that's the kind of mindset that we're up against. And it's our own people. And that's what we're talking about right now. I'm not going to sit here and get into whataboutisms and try to compare myself to other groups. I'm not part of those other groups. I'm not responsible for those other groups. I'm responsible for us.
Exactly.
And the children that I have produced and have to put out into this world. And so let's talk about us. Why are these politicians that look like us not afraid to lose the vote? Why?
And I think that's one of the main conversations that I've been having on my show. Of course, you watch my show. Is that Alvin Bragg's office to me is doing what Michael Dukakis would have done in 1992 when he was going up against, was it 92 when he went up against, or is it 88?
And he was going Bob Dole and
because they were saying
because it was like a Purdue chicken. Right,
because they were saying that Democrats are not tough on crime, and that's when you push over policing, and this is what it looks like to me. You had these officers come into Jonathan Major's home. They didn't know who he was, and that was initially on the body cam, which I'm still baffled how we didn't get to hear the sound of the body cam. We've seen the Philando Castiles and everything happen, these body cams when they shoot, people that look like us, on the street. But when you look at what's going on right now, we don't want to show the body cam. We don't want to say they didn't know who he was, and in the conversations that was happening. So you have over policing, and then you go to the DA's office who's overcharging. When you had Jonathan Major's first charges, it was like 8 different charges. And then we got 8 different charges. We're going to narrow it down. We can't do that one because obviously there was no strangulation or whatever. So we're going to dwindle it down. And it's all of this to say, you know what? No matter what you do, I'm going to get you. So does race in this context, does race play a factor, and is that a problem for New York in what's going on with America is going on going forward? Is that going to be a problem?
Well, we know from every data point and every statistic in this country and in New York specifically that race is a factor in terms of over prosecution. I mean, remember that the city was sued over stop and frisk, over stopping I think in 1 year they stopped like 600, 700,000 people. Finally, they were sued by the ACLU and lost. And of course, some 80, 90% of those people were Black. There's over policing of Black people, and there has been in the history of the city for decades after decades. Remember that Alvin Bragg's entire reason to come into office was that he was going to be that type of prosecutor that wasn't going to do the prosecutions on small things, and he was going to be progressive, and he's a progressive prosecutor. So we're not going to be prosecuting the Ouija men and the broken windows and all that other stuff. And it turns out that he brings this case to court, effectively a lover's spat gone public that we could witness on many a camera, which is unusual because typically in these cases you don't have that type of evidence. We see John Majors de-escalate over and over and over again, from putting her back in the truck to running away from her to going to get an apartment. To going to get a hotel room on the Upper East Side on 77th Street. Couldn't be more further away than where he was. This is all de-escalation. It's all de-escalation. So what are we telling men? We certainly want men not to be aggressive with women. Everybody cares about sexual violence and domestic violence. There's nobody that doesn't care about these issues. And Jonathan Majors does the textbook thing that one would think we would want a man to do who's in some sort of a conflict with the person that he's going out with. He does all of those things. He gets locked out of his own place by this person who has texted him 30-something times only a short time before. The police show up and make him the villain. Now, if that doesn't matter to the jury and the judge and to Alvin Bragg's office, then that tells me that evidence doesn't matter and facts don't matter. And that's extremely scary. That's a scary thing to think about.
Danielle?
Yep. I mean, and she's right. I mean, facts don't matter. Evidence doesn't matter. Reasonable doubt, as defined by the law and as required by the judge when he gives his instructions, the conditions that have to exist in order for reasonable doubt to be established. Completely ignoring that, ignoring the law, splitting hairs on questions that were being asked that clearly indicated that there was enough reasonable doubt that you're even asking that question, but yet we're still. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. I think. I mean, I'd be beating a dead horse to just keep repeating myself because I've said it on your show, Chill, Hines, my own. It's mind blowing. I'm mind blown by the fact that they were able to convict him on essentially the same 4 charges,
right?
2 of each. If you have guilt on one of each, then how do you not have guilt on the other 2? So to me, that indicates to me that there was doubt, but you just had to get him on something.
Right.
Exactly. And Danny, for you being in the courtroom, what was some of the, and I'm gonna get to you, Lauren, too. What was the feel throughout the trial? I know you missed one day, and shout out to Jimmy that came and covered it. But what was the feel that you was feeling before it? Were you looking at this and was like, there is enough evidence here. I don't care about September of 2022 because I still think that's a bull job, because for that to even be a factor, and I think it was a factor because I think you called it when they rested over the weekend. And you have all this time to get on social media, to get on the television, especially, I believe, social media, and all you see is the mainstream media posted about, not the video of him being chased,
right.
Not the really the testimony of the driver, the text message for 2022. So what was the feel of the courtroom? Because that's a lot of people's conversation. The feel of the courtroom, looking at the jurors. I know you've mentioned that before, but I think people don't really get it because you were actually there. Kind of give me that take on that.
I'm sure Lauren can vouch for that. I mean, it was it felt like it should have felt. I want to say the day that the Monday, a week ago, well, now a week and a half ago, it felt more gloomy. Even before the jury came up with the verdict. I'm very sensitive to I don't know if you want to call. I don't know if it's called empath. I don't
Empath.
know what it's
Yeah,
called these days.
I'm
When
the
you can
same way.
actually
I
feel
feel it.
energy.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
feel
I
it and be
feel
like,
energy. Yeah, I feel it really strong. And like I literally, I brought both my daughters with me that day because Christmas break had started. Well, my college students been out since early December, and then my youngest was about to go out. So I said, okay, you can miss one day of school. So I brought both of them that day. And I at one point I almost passed out. I really did. I know it sounds crazy, but I turned around to both of them. I said, I feel like I'm about to pass out. Because that's how heavy it felt on Monday. And I'm not a passer outer. I've never passed out in my life, but I literally felt like I was about to, just fall out.
just lose it.
And
Yeah.
that was the only day that I actually felt some bad energy in the room. And I even got on, I think it was Heinz's stream when we had a break.
Yeah.
And Chillmonger was there, and you could see it on my face. Like I didn't even look like myself. I'm looking at myself in the thing, and I'm like, and they kept asking me, "Are you okay? Like what's going on?" And I didn't even really have any words. Like they can vouch for that. I just was like, I don't know what to say. I was like, I don't know. Like I just kept saying, I don't know. I didn't feel good about it. It just did not feel right. But all the way leading up until last Monday, it was up and down as it should be, depending on the witness you had on the stand that day. You were just like, oh, okay. But then by the time cross happened, you felt a little better because then their story started to unravel a little bit. And then there was more doubt. Every time cross came, the doubt was sown. So I'm like, okay, good. So everybody that comes up here, we're getting more and more doubt. And then the Monday before the verdict Monday was doubt day. I actually posted about that. Every prosecution witness that came up on that stand testified for the defense. Was there, Lauren, that day?
I think so.
Yeah, that was the day the driver came on, the day that
Is that Chloe,
her
Sam?
Yeah.
One of the officers, a bunch of people came on that day, that everything that came out of their mouths on direct helped the prosecution. So by the time cross came, they only had one or two questions to ask and they moved on. So that day went pretty quick. And I was like, okay, good. We'll have a verdict by Wednesday because this is going faster now. We're not spending 1 and 2 days per witness. And we very well could have Wednesday, Thursday had a verdict. But, we got a couple of expert witnesses on the stand that slowed us down. And they did go out on Thursday, but they only had like 45 minutes before they were ready to go home. So that's how you got Thursday, Friday, then the weekend, and then they had the verdict by Monday. So if you do the math, they only deliberated for probably a cumulative 5 hours tops, because they had about 45 minutes Thursday, an hour and a half Friday, and they might have spent maybe 3 hours total on Monday, including lunch. Because they got the verdict by 2:30 that afternoon. So maybe 4.5, 5 hours total. So for optics, yeah, it looks like they took their time. They spent 3 days on a verdict. No, they did not.
Right.
4 to 5 hours, the bulk of it being the day of the verdict. And like I said, I feel like they just wanted to get him on something. And probably from what they were seeing on social media, a couple of them were holdouts and were like, oh, well, they're talking about us. So, we can't prove them right, and, let's get this one lone black lady that slept halfway through the trial and pin her up against the wall and see, how many of us can browbeat her into just giving in. And I feel like that's what happened with her. I really do. And I hate to do that because, I love my people. I love us. And that's why I'm so hard on us. But she broke code, man. I'm promising you that lady. And and she's an older lady, like Lauren said. She's probably mid to late 50s. So she's been around. She's been here a while. She kind of crossed a little rough around the edges. So I was like, yeah, she gonna get this. She gonna hold it down. And I felt like she did up until the point where right before the verdict, they asked to see the video again. They asked for that little blurb from Chloe's testimony. And that was all she wrote at that point. And I'm just like, you can still fight that, though, because you just watched the video contradicting what that blurb that Chloe said, you know, I don't know, but yeah.
And how do you think, and this is a question to both of you guys, how do you think, with the way that Alvin Braggs is running the district attorney's office? I think I've heard on Roland Martin, the young lady who was the alleged victim in the Kevin Porter case, the district attorney came on while she's talking to her mom, say, yeah, we made up these charges. This is not, we didn't speak to her because we had to get this done. We had to get it filed by Tuesday. How often is this happening? And is this something that, the voter, and this is for you, Lauren, because I know you work in, you deal with the politics of this. How much is this needs to be, this case needs to be shined on Alvin Braggs as, hey, we got this guy who's coming in. I know he's, he wants to be tough on domestic violence. And I'm not saying not to, because I just read the report that, that domestic violence has risen in New York City in the past year. So I understand that, but is it rising because of the policing in it, or you actually have victims coming forward?
Yeah, I think clearly there's some what I would call political decision making in his office. I mean, when you see the Kevin Porter case and an Adam Foss case, because one could very easily argue that the Adam Foss case had no business in a courtroom as well.
Absolutely.
That had been pursued by somebody in his office from a Medium post. And then all of a sudden Adam Foss is on trial for rape. And then he is acquitted because the evidence wasn't there in any way, shape, or form. In the Kevin Porter situation, his girlfriend comes out and says, he didn't assault me. It contacts Alvin Bragg's office and says, he didn't assault me. Gets on national TV and says, he didn't assault me. And then they're putting words in my mouth and doing a bunch of stuff in the background that I didn't ask for. I'm not sure what else you need to see. Then you had Jonathan Majors right after that. So I don't know what else we needed to see to show that something is up here. By the way, these are all black men. Are we seeing any white men getting prosecuted? There's a lot of white men on the island of Manhattan last I checked, and yet somehow these are all black. So I think they're obviously trying to make a political statement. I think that's fairly obvious. Notice nobody's explaining any of this publicly. If it wasn't for the fact that Kevin Porter's girlfriend's mother got on the phone and taped the woman in Alvin Bragg's office, we wouldn't have known anything about that. Then Roland Martin made that public. We wouldn't have known anything about that. So clearly something is up. I'm not sure why Alvin Bragg isn't out sort of explaining this, but of course, from a political standpoint, he doesn't really need to explain it because there's no political pressure on him. And all of these people who thought Alvin Bragg was such a great guy, the National NAACP, all of these national civil rights groups, they're the ones that should be talking about this. Like, why are we not hearing about that? So at some point, that does have to come into discussion. Because I do think that the Majors case was the ultimate unlike the other cases I've named, Foss and Porter, we had all sorts of evidence. We had video, we have text messages, we have, Jonathan Majors sprinting down the street away from Grace Jabari, and talking about jurors that could have seen social media. Well, why didn't they see social media on the arrest of Grace Jabari? Grace Jabari was arrested for assault. And then Alvin Bragg's office puts out the message to everybody, we're not going to prosecute Grace Jabari. So we are prosecuting domestic violence, but not when a woman is doing something. Is that what the message is? Somebody needs to answer these questions, right? So if they're never prosecuting domestic violence when a woman assaults a man, that would be something that the voters of New York should probably know about, right? So, I mean, I just find that to be interesting, too, that in my next video, it's going to be about the media. This idea that only one gender can be prosecuted, apparently, in Alvin Bragg's office. Now, I can't imagine that it's the case that they haven't prosecuted any women who have assaulted men. But in this particular case, it was very interesting because Jonathan Majors had photos of some of the alleged injuries that actually came from Miss Jabari. And then I watched firsthand a police detective from the New York City Police Department have all of his testimony, virtually 80% of his testimony blocked, and the judge actually say to him, don't show those pictures to anybody. Can you cover that up when the pictures of, I think they were, it's hard to confirm this, but I'm pretty sure those were the pictures of
They
the
were.
of of Jonathan Majors.
Because
That the
I
judge,
could see them from where I was
Yeah.
sitting. I could
right,
see them. And then
and
they
so,
made him turn it face down so that the
right,
jury couldn't see him. But I could see
right,
the picture from where I was sitting. It was his face and where he was scratched, like right here on his arm.
right.
Mm-hmm.
And so you would have thought that that detective's testimony would have been quite interesting and vital, and it was blocked. So to me, that was
And
an
he was
alarm.
black. He
Yeah,
was the only black officer.
right, right. How
That's
about
the Afro
Mm,
Latino, but if you see him on the
yeah.
street, you would think
right,
he was black.
And
right?
he's the
Um,
one who's pictured with, if I'm not mistaken, he's the one
Mhm.
who's pictured with the young lady after she was booked
Right.
at the Chinatown Police Department. He's the one who's walking next to her, moving her to the car, if I'm not correct.
Right. And so the fact that Miss Jabari was arrested, you could tell that there was a sense in there of we can't have this blow up and be the Johnny Depp trial, right? So we're
mhm.
moving in political ways. Our energy is political. Is this what you think is going to curtail domestic violence in the city of New York? I mean, are these the types of cases? So I'm just thinking, if in fact that's true and you care about domestic violence, then why don't we care when the woman has assaulted the guy and gotten arrested? They immediately put it out that they're not going to
Yeah.
prosecute Ms. Jabari. So that for me, that was an interesting development. We're prosecuting by gender is an interesting development. So I just find that to be, and Mr. Majors had evidence of it. So it wasn't just him talking. He had photographic evidence. You have that scene too where he gets to the hotel that he stayed at to stay away from her, of him looking at his face in the hotel mirror in the
Mirror.
elevator, which was another sign that he thought he had been injured. But
Mhm.
I find it very interesting how this supposed progressive prosecutor who doesn't want to take on every single Mickey Mouse misdemeanor crime in Manhattan. I find it interesting how he's proceeding.
Absolutely. And then shout out to Chillmonger, appreciate that. This is the detective, the Sergeant Hansen, I believe, who's literally,
Mhm.
he's in the body cam, like coaching the Grace Jabari. He's coaching her and saying, "Hey, did he do putting his hands around his neck?" Which again was in the initial TMZ report. um they came out and said, "Hey, this is what we got going on in that on that initial report, and now we see it for ourselves." And it's funny that everyone was going on the text messages, "Oh, what he said," or the Coretta Scott King, because that's the mainstream media. That was good talking points. "Oh, we can boost this up, we can get a lot of clicks on this, because look, we're talking about how the way that we perceived Jonathan Majors, he checked her. Let's be real. What he did was say, you ain't gonna come up here drunk. You ain't gonna come up here acting a fool with your friends. You need to be more like these women." And I know, especially us, we have a field day when we hear something and we think it's funny. We go on the shade room and we got our, we get our jokes in. Everybody's a comedian. But what he said was correct. You can't come in my house, because I'm more liable. And even in the text messages, he's saying he's even more liable because of who I am and what I am. And I've always found it funny. Well, I can't say that I'm a great man, but we're talking about a great man's a statement, and not talking about what the policing is doing. To me, that was a false arrest, because how can I come and call for a wellness check and next thing you know, I'm getting put in handcuffs?
Right.
Why? Where is the evidence that I did anything? You have the DA's office who hid a lot of information, which was probably the videos, and 1 terabyte worth of data. Now, when Papa Chaudhry, and this is why we're trying to tell you guys in the comments and stuff like that, I can't just 1000% blame Papa Chaudhry's office for this. They went and tried to get the information. They've been fighting tooth and nail against Albert Bragg since the Adam Falls case. They know what's going on. And they were hiding information, that 1 terabyte information. Then when they opened it up, there's corrupt files in there. What is the Alvin Bragg's them trying to hide? And instead of focusing on what the policing did, what the district attorney's office did, we're talking about text messages. It's kind of like what Allen Iverson said many moons ago. We're talking about practice, not a game, practice. And we got so focused on what was going on with the text messages. And to me, that's what a lot of the jurors got caught up in. Well, he said he was mean. He sound mean to her. There, and then also the mainstream media, shout out to Cheyenne Roundtree. You know who you are. Oh, there's 40 women. There's 40 individuals that say he was being mean to me. But none of those people showed up for court. None of those people, we still have no idea who these people are. So I'm looking at the influence of the media, him being a black man, him getting bigger because he trained for Creed. So they're like, oh, well, this is now the big black man, despite him running from her. So it's like, what do you do? It's like, I've done everything that I can, and it still wasn't enough. So what is the average citizen of New York supposed to do in that particular situation?
Right.
I think,
go ahead, Lauren.
No. I think the average citizen in New York doesn't really have to worry, because I think this office is really focused on high profile cases that they can make PR from. This is the ultimate example of it, because this case should not, in my view, should never hit the courtroom.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I know, Danny, you had a video, which I know you was on Dr. Hines' podcast, and listening to the attorney, which is some of the things that I agree with. But I can read. I also read the room. You know what I mean. So you brought you brought a former district attorney,
Kirby Clemens.
Yeah, Kirby Clemens on there, and he said something interesting about the appeal. He said, even though the text messages were leaked, that might actually been a blessing in disguise for the appeal. Can you talk about that for a minute?
Right, because he said that, well, not only the text messages, but the all the testimony that was dated prior to the incident was unduly prejudicial. And so because it did not have anything to do with March 25th, 2023, it prejudiced the jury. It's quite obvious that that's what he was convicted of. He was not convicted of anything that we saw on March 25th, 2023. Because had they only considered that and everything that we saw and heard relating to that, it would have been a slam dunk, an easy acquittal, because that doubt was there. But see, unfortunately, we rely upon people thinking critically. We rely upon people reading. We rely upon people listening. And just the fact that they had to get those instructions and explanation of charges repeated was a red flag for me. More than half that jury looked, I don't know if they were, but they looked under the age of 30 or just barely getting to 30. So I no offense to those of you in the chat that are in that generation, y'all gonna be the end of the world. Y'all gonna cause the apocalypse, because you don't read. If it's longer than 1 or 2 minutes, you're not going to read it. If it's not on YouTube or some soundbite on Twitter or Instagram, you're not going to engage. And if you do engage, you jump in the comment section ready to drag anybody that disagrees with you, instead of thinking and saying, oh, yeah, they might have a point. Or, yeah, my mom did say that one time. It's just instant reaction, And I feel like that's the jury we got, at least more than half of them anyway, because obviously there were 8, only 6 were able to go back and deliberate. The other 2 had to be separated from them. So they had no involvement in deliberations at all. So that whole top row, 30, 28, 29, if that. The one that kept laughing, I don't even think he was 30 yet. So, look, I don't even know what question I was answering at this point, because I'm just what was the
question? About the appeal, do you think that with Kirby Clemens came out and said, like, hey,
so he have
that. Yeah,
so Kirby said they need to just go after everything that they can. Everything. There are like 10, 15 different reasons you can appeal. I just bullet pointed the ones that I thought might have been, viable options. So you have prosecutorial misconduct. You have inconsistent verdicts. I feel like this kind of met the case for inconsistent verdict. Because how are you going to convict me on one assault and one misdemeanor and quit me on another assault and a misdemeanor? Granted, one is deliberate, one is not deliberate, but it's still the same charge, and it requires the same amount of evidence. So to me, that's an inconsistent verdict. Again, I'm not a lawyer, but I would throw that out there and then find some case law to justify it. You have, like I said, the prejudicial evidence. That's going to be the big one. So I think they're really going to have to go hard on that. There's a litany of reasons to ask for an appeal, and like he said, they're going to have to throw everything at them, including the kitchen sink. He said at one time when he did an appeal, he won just on a footnote, not even the actual text of what he was claiming. And he's still licensed in New York, and I'm poking and I texted him. I'm like, you need to call Jonathan, boo. But he was a Brooklyn DA.
Which was good to have on, because because a lot of the insight. And if you guys haven't seen that video, make sure you go to Danny Does That. It's a video with Kirby Clemens. He is a former district attorney.
First real video, yeah.
Yeah, and that has a lot of great information in it. So I will make sure that you guys, I implore you to watch that video, because it's a lot of great information. Lauren, did you feel the same way as far as like the actual appeal process in this? Do you feel that, or are you looking at it, as far as like what they charge with? Because remember, this is a misdemeanor. One of them is a ticket. And I used to be a former correctional officer for the city of Kansas City, for the city division. So any DV case, prostitution, speeding, any type of violation, speeding violation, any of that, we got all that stuff. We used to transport inmates down, to city court all the time. I've heard, literally thousands of cases. I've never seen a trial for a misdemeanor ticket. One of them is a ticket. It is very much a ticket. It's a city violation. If I come and yell at your ear, you can get me for harassment. That's how minute that ticket is. In the reckless, the reckless assault is really, anything could have happened to cause that, but you're blaming me. So what do you think as far as the appeal wise? Do you think we're looking at a easy appeal with this? Because like Lawrence, like Danielle said, we have a lot that we can throw at the kitchen sink, or, this might be a little uphill battle.
Well, it definitely is going to be an uphill battle in a left-leaning jurisdiction like Manhattan. But certainly the text messages and talking about, September 2022 is problematic. I also thought that several of the decisions by the judge was problematic. Letting in the DV expert was an interesting tour of something that had nothing specifically to do with this case. The expert was not connected in any way to Mr. Majors or Ms. Jabari, and I have no idea why that witness was allowed to sit and talk about everything she's worked on that has nothing to do with John Majors or Grace Jabari. Yet the judge allowed that testimony. So that there's several points of appeal. I also think that his attorneys and John Majors need to be talking. They need to be talking to the media. And I am well aware of the strategy, what I call the Williams and Connolly strategy of never talking to the media, because, of course, what you say publicly can be used against you in a court of law. But that's over now. So they should be messaging. They should be telling his side of the story, which was never told. I actually think there's an argument to be made that he should have taken the stand, but I understand the details around doing that and not doing that. But I think that what actually happened in there was that her side of the story is told, his side of the story is not told, although it would seem to me that most of his side of the story was told through text messages and video. Right. And but they decided not to, for whatever reason, paying any attention to that. I think it is a dubious, historic, and contemporary setup to walk into a courtroom and find that everyone sitting in judgment of this person, who's a black male in the United States, is white, except for one person, juror number 2. That was not a jury of his peers in any way, shape, or form. You have an almost all white press corps. And my experience with that has been they don't care anything about the history of the United States, the history of how black males are treated in Manhattan or any place else. That never comes into their reporting. So,
No.
in the world we live in, where the headline is the whole thing, and we're putting the word monster next to John Majors' name because he had a text message, he said monster. And then we have stories that are referencing 40 people, none of whom show up at trial to testify under oath. I'm one of these people who's kind of old school about journalism. If you're not showing me evidence and people under oath, I believe absolutely nothing.
I don't want to hear about it.
Exactly.
Right.
I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to hear about what you said on YouTube or Instagram or Twitter. None of that matters to me. But typically what you get in these cases is somebody that does pop up on social media. We didn't even have that. So when Rolling Stone rolled out their 40 people and there's not one person mentioned by name, and by the way, they say they went back all the way to his high school years. So I'm not sure what the fear of John Majors is. John Majors is not president of the United States.
Exactly.
So about we got to hide and be anonymous. Most news organizations would not have that as a standard. You're referencing 40 people, but not one of them shows up at trial and not one of them shows up on social media. That's the type of dubious thing that I think prejudiced the jury. And I hated the fact that this was not televised. And I hated the fact that it was a gag order, because there's no reason for this case not to be televised other than this group of people in prosecution not wanting the public to see what actually happened.
Yeah. And live and be able to say, oh, whoa, wait a minute, something's wrong.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Exactly. And
getting your super chats, but
thank you. Thank you so very much for the super chats. My guy Marcus, underrated chef, piece of chat to the chat, the guests, and my boy Dre Mac. Appreciate that. Justin for Jonathan Majors. Robin D, thank you so very much. And one of my admins said, do you think he should change attorneys on his appeal? I want to get that question after I get the last super chat for keeping it burning. Keep speaking the truth. Thank you so very much. Skidus NT. Do you think he should seek different counsel on his appeal, or should Pyro continue with this case?
I think that they should consult. Like, for example, give Kirby a call. He's licensed in New York, and that's not even a shameless plug. I'm just saying, if you guys are watching, go watch what Kirby said, because at the end of the day, I hate that I keep saying that because that's a New York thing. At the end of the day, not for nothing. But I feel like so you know how they say put a second set of eyes on something?
Yeah.
So like you're proofreading a document and you don't see any of the errors, and then somebody else looks at it and say, oh no, this, and this. It doesn't speak to your intellect. It doesn't speak to your ability to write. It just speaks to the fact that you overlook something because you're just working so hard that you're not noticing, typographical errors or grammatical errors, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like any professional that is not the smartest person in the room can benefit from another professional that has nothing to do with the case, that is completely unbiased, that doesn't have any connection to the defendant, to look at it and say, oh yeah, I definitely think that this, and this. And who knows, maybe she knew because I heard somebody else say that. I don't know what I was watching, but somebody else made a comment that maybe she deliberately made that, caused that Molyneux evidence to come back up. Because, when you can kind of see, okay, this can go either way. So if we do lose, we need to have something to appeal on.
So basically basically like, this is our fallback plan. So let's go ahead and push this out here because, like you said earlier, you're in the court. Detective Mejia can't even, and you said that too, Lauren. Detective Mejia can't even get a word in because every time you say, well, I see objection sustained, well, I'm doing this, objection sustained. Yeah. So that could have been a strategy in the long run. Like, let me set this landmine here so we can, yes, it will look bad, but if I could use this as a defense strategy, just in case, that will win. That's actually, I actually, the first time I thought about that. That's actually pretty good.
And then, like I said before, all the stuff that was in that text she had already testified to. The only thing she didn't mention was the head and trying to go to the hospital. But everything else she testified to. So nothing in that text about him calling himself a monster, about him threatening suicide, about her trying to go to his job and prevent him from doing it, and then him saying, "No, I'm good, I'm gonna go to therapy." She said all of that in her first 2 days of testimony. So it wasn't surprising. That's why I was like, now that I have context and I can actually see that this happened on one day and not over the course of months, it makes more sense now.
And, right, because there's no pattern of or no.
Right.
What did Alvin Bragg say after the guilty verdict? There was a pattern, or there was a circle of violent overoccurred.
Psychological abuse and manipulation and It's actually her doing it.
Exactly. Exactly. And Lauren, you spoke to this when you first got when you one of the first videos you posted, that you appreciated the YouTubers, and shout out to Chillmonger, Pam Entertainment, Cat, Flavio Sosa. Let me give him a big shout out. Who am I missing? Pam, she dreads me, Blues House Live, all of us YouTubers who came out. I'm supposed to be talking about Marvel news and DC news and comic books. And here I am talking about, of course, Jonathan Majors was playing Kang the Conqueror in the MCU. So that's how, I got my interest. But what did you see from the YouTuber? What made you proud of the YouTubers coming out so hard about Jonathan Majors and getting this information out, even that's non-MCU, but about what's going on in the trial? How did that make you feel, and what did you see from that?
Well, the two things is that people who are not tethered to corporate media tend to speak a hell of a lot more plainly from a common sense standpoint. They don't have a lot of people hovering over them and trying to sort of steer the conversation into a certain agenda. With regard to Me Too reporting specifically, there are certain things that are never brought up. For instance, I don't think the New York Times or the Washington Post has ever done one story that has ever explored the problems of the Me Too movement, such as false allegations. Now, false allegations exist. We saw the UVA rape case. We've seen all sorts of cases. Duke Lacrosse.
Emmett Till.
Yes.
And we've seen also
Benny Jr.
We saw Adam Foss in this specific jurisdiction in Manhattan. And yet there's never been a story that has just said, okay, Me Too is definitely a movement that's trying to do a good thing, trying to put a spotlight on sexual violence and trying to fix that problem. But what about this? What about this view? You don't see that. So people on YouTube who are just watching this and taking in the evidence, I felt the analysis on some of these channels was a hell of a lot better than what we've been seeing by what is considered to be mainstream media. So you're having a deeper analysis on very specific things, and it's not done in a politically correct political way. So they're talking about everything. They're not having the encumbrance of being politically correct. And there's a lot of details. There's two attorneys. Legal Bites is one of them, and then there's a Black attorney based in Washington, D.C. that are outstanding, that really sort of verify that even though I think it's a huge advantage to see it firsthand in the courtroom, you still can do a really good job reading the transcript, paying attention. The lady at Legal Bites also said, she always likes to say, look, I'm not in the courtroom. I can't see it. I'm just reading press reports. So I'm just going on that. She's basically telling the audience, look, I don't know everything, but this is my legal analysis. And she's doing a really good job at doing that. Kat is another example of that. She's not in the courtroom, but you're doing a real deep dive of the timeline. So you can, if you can get some of those legal documents, even though you're not there, do a really good analysis and a really good deep dive on YouTube. We've seen this for other legal cases as well. And quite frankly, as I'm sitting there watching it, I'm thinking, okay, I just learned a bunch of stuff that I did not read in the New York Times or in Hollywood Reporter, and certainly not in People or Rolling Stone, because as you can see, People and Rolling Stone do have a political agenda that is very Me Too friendly and very not deferential to the history of Black men in the United States and how they've been treated by the legal system. So if you know all of those things, and again, when I go in the courtroom and I saw who was doing the coverage, I knew to keep watching the YouTube channels, because I'm like, this is going to be biased in that way that it's always been biased over 404 years. There has never been any deference to what's happened to Black people in the criminal justice system, in reporting, in the mainstream media. That's never happened. There's never been a golden era of media reporting on race. Okay. I mean, so you look at that, no, nothing personal against any specific reporters. It doesn't matter if it was Cheyenne Roundtree or anybody else. If it wasn't Cheyenne Roundtree, they'd have another person there writing the same thing that she's writing. So it doesn't matter. It's about Rolling Stone. It's about the fact that the person, Jan Wenner, who owns Rolling Stone, this is the guy that tried to act like Black musicians didn't matter. So why would John?
He's a racist, right? So there you go.
You know the history is, it's just, you know, the history of some of these publications. I don't expect anything out of them. So I do appreciate the YouTube analysis because it's been quite good and quite detailed quite often.
Yes, and Dr. Hines, I forgot to shout him out, and I can't think of the brother's name offhand, but I know exactly who you're talking about, the lawyer. I just can't think of the brother's name. He subscribed to my channel, subscribed to his. I just can't think of his name, but he's done an amazing job. Kat has done an amazing job of breaking it down. Pam Entertainment, Chillmonger bringing out the videos when they're coming out hot. In Mark Nicholson, also, that's what he's been doing an awesome job. Shout out to Pam. Pam is in here, and Chill. So they have done an amazing job. And I feel like as a YouTuber, I've seen a lot of other YouTubers, and again, I say on code because I don't call the Black YouTubers out. I would just say it like that. But because I try to stay on code, but I've seen a lot of them. Oh, well, I don't want to, talk to Danny because she might be biased because she has Justice for Jonathan Majors in the hashtag instead of looking for all the information that is out here. And, and when we're looking at it, all of us is saying, hey, I know that I'm wearing glasses, but I can't be this blind to see all the things that is going on. And we don't speak up because this is my little business. This is my little side business, so as that I have my own entity. Nobody's telling me what I should and should not say on my channel. So why shouldn't I go for all of the information and try to, spread, as much, of the factual information as possible as is coming to me. You know what I mean? So that's what I do like about being a YouTuber. I appreciate the I guess what they call it, us, the Law Avengers that came out, it came out and said, we're going to fight for this because as a Black man, I've been in New York. I've been to Brooklyn, over there on Atlantic, Saratoga. There's no way you're going to get me and find me running down the street and I don't get justice. Y'all better come get me and give me some justice. You know what I mean? Because y'all not going to do that. Y'all not going to have me out here hanging dry. And I seen what was going on with Jonathan Majors, who beforehand was a media darling. The only controversy you can say is that people didn't like his outfit on the cover of Essence, I believe.
The pink fluffy jacket. And that's actually my favorite outfit. I think that is sexy as hell, but hey, that's just me.
Yeah.
It doesn't know where it comes from. You know what I mean? That he loves anime and seen an anime character with it. I'm aware of that. His eccentricness and what he likes, and so.
But he didn't even pick that outfit. It was the guy the photographer did that whole concept based on the anime.
Exactly.
But the crazy thing is, I'm derailing your speech, but the crazy thing is, these same people, their mamas was attracted to Snoop Dogg when he had a silk press and Shirley Temples. You know what I mean? Shirley Temple curl. Same people who are currently attracted to men that wear 2-strand twists with bobos on the end of their hair, but yet you're talking about him because he had on a pink fur coat. Like, I'm confused.
I about to say, I know you remember the Tupac photo shoot with him in the tub. Yeah, so that's cool. Yeah, it was when he had the gold draped all over me. He had no drawers on. That's all I'm gonna say. Yeah, he needed to put some drawers on. But what we were just saying is that, I felt like he was going to get the raw end of the deal. So who is really fighting for us? And I said this before on a live stream. I can talk about, comic book movies and Marvel and DC all day, but when it comes to my people, I'm gonna stand in the gap. And how many of us is willing to lose money because some of my videos is not getting monetized, because I'm speaking about Jonathan Majors, Not cussing, not anything. Just nope. I think our ads don't, not feeling that.
Right.
Okay, cool. I'd rather lose that, but still stand with my people. So who is going to stand in the gap and really be the brother's keeper for brothers like John Majors and the people that's not like John Majors, people who just look like me every day. So that's why I'm doing this. All right, so we're getting ready.
Yeah, absolutely. So.
Oh, you will be soon. Just don't worry.
I'm a volunteer.
Trust me, it took me a year. It took me a little over a year. Let me take that. It took me a little over a year. So, that's I said. But we're getting ready to wrap this up. Lauren, thank you so very much for coming on to my show. I've been looking forward to this ever since you said, "Yep, I can do it." So I appreciate you. Tell the people where they can be able to find you at, especially when you're on Roland Martin too. Somewhere they can be able to get your insight at.
I'm on Roland Martin every Thursday. I don't think I'm on tomorrow, but every Thursday I'm on Roland Martin. And then I own a few media platforms. Basically, you can see me on X. As much as I'm not a fan of Elon Musk, my handle is LV Burke, and my email, I believe, is on my profile. If it's not, I'll put it there. Or DM me. My DMs are open.
Absolutely. I hear the DMs are open. And Danielle, of course, it's always a pleasure, speaking with you and hearing your insight of, ever since this thing cracked open, I was like, I have to speak with her because I just see so much going on and I so much just really appreciate you for working with me and the other YouTubers. Where can they find you guys at? Where can they find you at?
Well, I'm at Danny Does Law on X, just like Lauren. If you go there, you'll find everything else. It's up in my my bio. If you're not on X, then YouTube. I just started this channel. Danny Does This and That because it might be a little bit of everything eventually. But it's Danny Does This and That on YouTube. And I think I do have links that redirect to everything else. So.
All right. And of course, you already know it's me. So you could be able to follow me on X. I keep want to call it Twitter. I don't like it's being called X, honestly. It's Black X.
Well, it's X-rated. Have you seen some of the stuff on there?
Oh yeah. I've been on this app since 2008. So
no rules on X.
Exactly. So of course you guys can follow me on there at the Dre Mac Show, or I tell people go to the Real Dre Mac on Instagram. It's the easiest place because I don't get my notifications on X. So you can most definitely go to the Real Dre Mac on Instagram to be able to inbox me or whatever. If you have any additional questions or anything, I would love to help you guys out with anything that I can. But of course, I got to wrap this up because I got to get ready to go. These ladies got to get ready to go. I told them an hour. So thank you so very much for tuning in to another episode of the Dre Mac Show. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget to hit that bell notification so you never, ever, ever miss one of my videos again. Until next time, we'll holler at you guys later. Peace and vibe higher, y'all. Enjoy your Thursday. It's Thursday, right? Or is it Wednesday? It's Wednesday. I'm late. I gotta get out of here. Yo, bye. Peace. Where is my outro at so I get up out of here? I gotta go figure out what time it is. Let's go. Wait a minute. You're telling me the video's over? What? Okay, I guess so. If you have came to this portion of the video, thank you so very much for sticking to the end. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget to hit that little bell notification so you never miss one of my videos. And if you really want to, you don't got to, go ahead and follow the social media links that's down below. Until next time, I'll let you guys later. Peace and vibe higher, y'all. Y'all take care of yourself.